They don't allow us to use dummy passwords with them. So I have to use mine and change it every time. Okay. We're streaming, recording, and good to go.
Okay, good deal. I'd like to call this meeting of the East Franklinton Review Board to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Fergus,
Here.
Mr. Way. Here. Ms. Schmidt,
Here.
Spinner,
Here.
Mr. Sweeney, and Ms. Gibbons.
We have a forum. Raise your right hand.
Right.
You swear that the testimony you're about to give is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Yep.
And, okay. So everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes.
Any,
Apologize for getting consent late.
any additions or corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve as is.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. Call roll, please.
Mr. Fergus,
Approve.
Mr. Way. Abstain. Schmidt.
Approve.
Spinner.
Approve.
Okay, those are approved. Move next to continued application. We have one, it is COA 2400032. Address is 511 West Town Street. The applicant is Dave Perry and the owner is Rocky Point Partners LLC. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Applicants on the table, you should see an updated way we went into the site for announcing. Staff report, partially based on some of the new information we got today. This is 511 West Town Street. The project is for action. The project proposes a lot combination of 6 parcels along West Town Street and a construction of a 4-story, 85-unit apartment building with covered and surface parking. The development will feature green spaces, bike storage, and enhanced ADA pedestrian access. Some of the proposal details are the demolition of industrial-style buildings between 511 and 541 West Town, paving of the alley between West Bowman and West Town, the length of the building, elimination of the curb cuts along West Town Street, and green space at the corner of Mid Alley and West. Proposal is generally consistent with the East Franklinton development standards, with the exception of the proposal exceeding the maximum recommended density of 16 to 45 dwelling units per acre within the Arts and Innovation sub-district. However, staff believe that the excess density is mitigated by high qualities. The East Franklinton plan recommends that buildings between 3 and 5 stories must have setbacks above the 3rd floor. The design is inconsistent with this recommendation. The project was first reviewed in July 2024 and was approved by the board with the staff approved the conditions of an updated landscaping plan and showed what will be done with the green space fronting town, as well as the replacement of vinyl siding with a more high quality material. The applicant has adhered to these conditions by adding trees to the green space adjacent to the service lot, as well as replacing the vinyl siding of the parking board. However, based on the board's concerns from the previous conceptual review regarding increased activation, staff note the removal of residential unit entry doors along West Town Street. Staff note the presence of an unidentified vertical siding present on the upper portions of the elevations and request that the applicant provide specification of what material will be used on that portion of the building. Additionally, the applicant is proposing artwork on the east elevation adjacent to the office entrance and west side of the building adjacent to the side entrance of the proposed commercial space. The applicant is proposing the following variances related to garage access, parking, and the surface lot southern setback. The first variance they're requesting is for the driveway to reduce the 2-way access to the enclosed parking from 20 feet to 16 feet. Parking space to reduce the width of 2 parking spaces from 9 feet to 8.5 feet. And last, for development standards to reduce the south parking lot landscape setback of the Mead Alley parking lot from 4 feet to 0 feet due to transformer and concrete pad. Staff supports the proposed variances, but requests the applicant screen the dumpster and transformer enclosure on all four sides. These Franklinton plans states that ground-mounted mechanical units and dumpsters should be located to the rear of the building and screened to their full height on all sides by screening that is complementary to the building in terms of colored materials or by evergreen plant material. Proposal generally aligns well with the East Franklinton plan by integrating into the urban fabric, supporting accessibility and enhancing connectivity. Proposed structure is consistent in mass and scale with surrounding buildings. Staff recommendation is to continue the application to next month to allow the applicant time to revise the design so that it steps back above the third floor, to revise the design to add greater activation on the first floor West Town Street facade. To give staff and the board sufficient time to review the updated site plan and landscape plan, to add additional material specifications for unnamed vertical siding, and to update the design so all four sides of the dumpster and transformer are.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff?
I do. Just since we don't have, last month's site plan and especially the plan for parking in front of us I can tell there was the addition, is that right, of parking
Yeah, I do have,
the east side?
this is the previous submittal here,
Okay,
from the conceptual last month.
yeah.
I think the biggest changes were, it looks like they took away, one of the spots here, they added two pedestrian spots. They got rid of a tree here and a little green space here and replaced that with ADA parking. And as well, eliminated the screening around the transformer and dumpster. That's helpful.
Thank you.
Sure.
As far as the step back was back last year when this was reviewed and have been approved in a previous form. Was the board approved without the step back?
Yes, there was a step back.
There was a step back at that point, I think.
Yep.
Any other questions for staff?
Cool. Is this in the latest? Would that update to the link that I have, or is?
No, I just received these today.
Oh, okay, so.
So don't look at that.
Don't look at that.
Okay. Applicant, please state your names for record, please.
Tom O'Brien. And Dave Perry on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. And gentlemen, do you swear or affirm this testimony you're about to give is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Right. Floor is yours.
Awesome. I can lead us off here. So this building, I think we first submitted before this board last summer. So I wanted to, the building has evolved somewhat since then, and we're hoping that it's close to its final form. So I wanted to kind of remind the board of some of the things that we've reviewed in the past, and some of those things are kind of what have brought us here today. One of the first comments that we received from the board was, as a part of this purchase, we purchased a lot on Walnut, a double lot there that was part of this industrial complex. It was requested by the board that that remain housing of some sort, even though it is currently zoned parking. We excluded it from this project, and that's part of the reason we're here today for a parking variance. And part of the reason the project is viewed as short on parking. From our perspective, I don't believe that, and we did change architects in the middle of this since we last presented last summer. I don't believe we ever had a step back on the third floor. Since we were here last summer, the project has evolved from a totally stick frame building to 3 stories over a podium to accommodate the parking, as well as some amenities and some other aspects of the project. Frankly, I think it's gonna be really tough for us to get a step back up there. The units are tight as they are, but obviously that's up to the board. The one thing that we did eliminate that was pointed out by Nolan is the front entrances on Town Street. When we added the podium, the increase in height of that first floor, the architects weren't able to add that back in. That is something that we agree was great. I think it would be great for the units. We specifically modeled this building after a building on 4th Street and 5th Ave, I believe, in Italian Village done by Likens Companies. We love the activation they have there. We pressed the architects and we weren't able to achieve that. So last time when we were here conceptually, my opinion is not much has changed here. The parking might be highlighted here across the alley there. It was certainly intended to be included in our conceptual review. It was certainly included in our review last summer. So I guess Dave can speak more to what we're specifically trying to review here. But from our perspective, we tried to change the building very minimally and accommodate all the requests that we heard at our last conceptual meeting last month, specifically the art, the vinyl siding. And to that point, the vinyl siding, if there is a siding that's in question, we're happy to, if the board were to approve contingent on that be some detail being added, it's not our intention to have that be vinyl. Everything will be hardy board, or other approvable material by the board.
Yeah, let me address a couple things. Yesterday, the reason Nolan got a couple updated things today was because the architect determined that a pool equipment room would be required, and that took out one parking space. And then the ADA van accessible space across the alley on the Mead Alley parking lot was determined to have to be EV installed, not just EV capable, but EV installed. And that's doesn't, the engineers and architect decided that doesn't work well within the building. So in terms of changes to the plan, I'll tell you what changed. The site plan and the landscaping plan are the same as was submitted for this meeting, 5/8, May 8th, except for some reason on the landscape designer, the words "not required" got on 2 of the notes, and it should not say on a landscaping plan that we're telling you this is a landscaping plan, the notation should not say "not required." So I sent that back to him and had those words removed in 2 places. But other than that, this is the same as was submitted May 8th. And then the site plan is the same, other than we're at 72 spaces now rather than 74 because of the equipment room and the change with the ADA space. Between being here for the April meeting and was good advice from Nolan, because it had been since summer of 24 that the project had been before you. And Nolan suggested the April meeting for a refresh of the board, and then the May meeting for action. But there's been, we were looking to find parking, and there were some changes to the lot on Mead from the April meeting, but very negligible changes to both plans for this meeting. And it's just the way things happen. There's it's hard to have a final product at a point in time when engineers and architects and owners and others are working on the project. So that's all that's changed. There's no material change to either plan.
Questions for the applicant?
Oh, I've got a couple.
Sure.
So you said that the ADA space that's EV couldn't be located in the garage. So the architect said they couldn't think that's why you had to put it out on me now. Why is that?
Well, there's 3 ADA spaces required, and 2 are in the garage and 1 is on the alley. And I believe the architect wants to have the space in the lot on the other side of Mead so that it's directly at the entrance. I mean, within a few feet of the entrance,
Oh, so just distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but a van accessible space, you know, I can tell, eats up a lot more ground than a regular parking space.
That's why I was wondering did you have to put the van outside or did you keep the van in the garage and put a regular?
Well, a van accessible space is 21 feet wide and the space, the left space in the garage would meet that requirement. I think there's a preference though, to have a space, an ADA space as close as possible to the entrance.
And that, I thought that green space was actually required to meet your open space requirement. As I remember way back. So does that now change the open space?
The
You all remember that?
the required parking setback is 5 feet. So that's what that was moved to get a couple more parking spaces out of it.
But I thought the green space which you're taking away to put that was required to meet the open space requirement. Am I not?
Could that possibly change?
It would really, for this part, it would be considered a service part. That's.
I just remember that way back when we first came in, there was something about that green space and I was really excited to have that go over.
And we are too, and so I'm just noticing that we've been through a number of rounds of the site plan compliance. So
Yeah,
there could be a scenario where that gets flagged again and parking changes.
so you're, the site plan before this one, you were 1 space shy, right? Is that what I, right? So now you were, how many spaces shy? 3.
Yeah, the previous, the May 8th submittal was 74 spaces, this is 72.
Okay, so you're down, you need 75, so you're down.
And our
Yeah.
intention was to double stack some of those spaces. You'll see that the Benjamin apartment projects across the street, of which this is the Benjamin 2, and we're partners with them. They have double stack spaces.
Right.
We were 2 feet short on these spaces from them being considered double stacks.
Yeah, 4 feet.
4 feet, 4 feet short. And that was a function of just how the building shrunk in the back because of the right of way take.
Okay.
Yeah, and the parking, by the way, it is short of the 1 space per unit, but there's no variance because the special parking district doesn't permit variances. So it's 3 short. There will need to either be the payment in lieu or waiver, but there's no variance to parking.
So, help me with this one. Is there on-street parking or down street in front of this lot, right? Which the black and white plan shows that. Are you counting any of those?
No.
But those are parking spaces that are available on the street.
Parking, yeah.
Yeah, they're not. They can't be counted relative to the East Franklinton district requirements, but they're right in front of the building.
Right, but I'm just saying that if the board has that we don't do parking anymore.
No.
No.
And there was great rejoicing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no doubt.
You have purview over design of the space, but.
Yeah. No, I'm just making that point. So one other fundamental question, you said you changed the design type of the building to go to a podium with 3 over a podium. What's driving that? Why can't you just stick with the original design and go with it, which was all stick built all the way down? Is that right? It's
Yes,
4 stick built stories.
the parking was considerably worse with the stick built version. At least when we studied it at the beginning, and then we quickly made the decision to move to podium just because of how tight the site was with us not being able to acquire the corner pieces. And then the building shrunk even more when the city asked for an additional right of way take on the unnamed, unapproved alley.
If there were units in 2024, if there were units on the frontage on the ground level, there would be 15 less parking spaces.
Were you deficient back then in terms of parking? I don't remember that.
Now, in the previous design, it was, parking was still on the first floor, but the units were designed so that the entrances were still on the first floor.
Yeah, right.
But you enter and there was some sort of vestibule area that took you upstairs to the units.
And in hindsight, we might have been a little premature with our presentation of that architectural plan, as it wasn't completely worked through like this has been. These plans are 90% done. So, you know, all of the units have been designed, all of the hallways, significant feedback from the city already. So the plan certainly evolved, and that's why we've been here a number of times since then.
Yeah. Okay. More questions?
So just so I understand too, if we were to approve this, this sort of changes the way that we approve going forward. So like the reason for that's a huge, that's a big thing. And so I like your questions that you're asking, trying to understand more, because again, when someone comes back and we will be changing the rule. So just again, so I understand it's simply just more of design, like a lot of this is being driven by parking spots. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of it's being driven by parking spots and just the overall functionality of the unit sizes. And the hallway.
And from the parking spots, knowing we need 75 and we're at 72, that will also change going forward.
The
Again,
present.
it's based on the number of units they're trying to
And
get.
how many units? So that's, I don't know, that. I mean, yeah, you have questions.
Well,
Let me-
but I'm.
May I comment on your parking question?
For space.
The one-
Going by the wayside.
The Franklinton Special Parking District has been in the city code much longer than Zone N.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And Zone N is requiring 0 parking.
yeah,
So this is not in Zone N, it's a couple blocks from Zone N, but there's a basic real estate inequity when 2 blocks from here, no parking at all is required. And
Mhm.
this is required to have 75, we have 72, that'll go through either a fee or waiver with the Public Service Department, but where Zone N is headed is no parking.
And from our perspective, I mean, other apartment projects that we build, our rule of thumb is 1.75 spots per unit. So we would love to have more parking here. But since we purchased the property, the design has changed significantly, and a lot of those spots are no longer being counted, and that's basically why we're here today.
And just to be clear on this, Nolan, what we decide has nothing to do with parking at this point.
Essentially.
Essentially, right? So I mean, we're not, anything we do about parking is not a precedent going forward for anything else, because we don't have that kind of authority. The precedent we are looking at though is to step back on the 3rd floor. That's not just a recommendation, it's kind of that would be something where if we were to approve this, it could be used as a precedent for future,
Okay.
future projects.
and I would add that the ground floor activation was also originally part of the proposal, and the activation was basically the foyer for the units, right? Which wasn't really activation, but at least it had a door, it had a little outdoor space, and it felt like it's just like across the street, you've got those units and they've got their balconies that are right there on the street level, or terraces. And to me, that's a real change in this. And if you put space back in there along town, you wouldn't be compromising parking unless you're trying to double stack, right? And the question is, I guess I'm going to ask this to you all, is if that wasn't the foyer for the units above, could you have some workspaces there along the frontage? I mean, you already showed that you could put the square footage in. Could it just be space that could be used? It could be for all sorts of different, I don't want to call it commercial space because we all know
Yeah.
how big it is, but Could you could introduce some space there that could be used for activating the street.
So we studied that in a number of ways. One of the first comments I'll make is it was requested that this project have some mixed use component to it. So we added the corner space that will be leased and it will not be a part of the apartment complex. So that reduced parking as well as the plan evolved. We looked at when our architects told us that the functionality of a front entrance into the second floor units didn't work. If I remember correctly, there was something to do with how close the building was to the right of way and how much front porch space they needed outside of the door. If I remember correctly, 3 feet, but I'm happy to get back to you if you'd like us to look at that further. Then we looked at like an art gallery space that would be like as wide as one human could walk down and it would have storefront windows. And that became a ventilation problem with the garage. And so, and that was even a part of the podium discussion was, hey, you know, can we display art in here? And then there was an ADA component to it where it had to be so wide. And then maybe it was fire rated walls or something that came in that it just compressed those spots too much. So we've studied a lot of these things. We've heard that feedback from the board. If it were up to us, we would come back, you know, with a plan that accommodated all the feedback that we've heard from you guys, and we'd be moving forward with the building much quicker. We would be open to, you know, there was a suggestion last meeting of placing local art on the building. That was specifically on the west facing wall. We would be open to supporting that on the front of the building in any manner. I mean, we're open to any and all suggestions. But I think it would be a really drastic change at this point for us to try to put those front porches back in, unfortunately. And then the only other question I would have about the third floor step back is, and this might be a difference of an apartment building and a residential house, but I believe we were approved for the residential houses across the street that are 3 stories. And those, from what I remember, don't have a noticeable step back on the 3rd floor. Is that just a completely different zoning?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, for single and 2 family, it's a little bit different.
It's different. Okay, got it.
You know, it's at the step back. I mean, if what you have now, you have a step back, which is the porches, right? Step back in. I mean, there's an interpretation there of what the setback, the step back is, and I know what the city's interpretation is. It's literally a step back,
Right.
Full thing. But you can see a step back there that does give relief. I think the intention is it's a relief. It's so that the mass of the building doesn't overwhelm the street. But you know, to me, that's less of a concern to me than not having an activated edge line Town Street. And I don't know, what material you're trying to show, like the gray material that looks like it's a window. Is that just an opening? Is it just open air? I don't know. I was trying to find the details for that, but they kind of look like doors, but they're gray. And then you've got window openings that are gray. And I'm guessing those are just open. And you see cars on the other side. Is that right?
Our intention is not for you to be able to see into the garage and there to be cars. I believe there's some sort of a ventilation component, but I also know that we have to add a ventilation system within the garage.
Right, so that would have to be open to be ventilated. So it means there's no glass or anything there, it's just an opening. And because the architects are showing windows as blue, and so I understand that part. But the gray ones are the areas where you're basically keeping it open. So it's a kind of a inaccurate depiction of what you're gonna see, because what you're gonna see is cars through those openings lined up. That's the part, I actually like the project, and I thought it was headed in the right direction with the ground level foyers. It just felt, you know, more activating it urban, but this seems to be going in the wrong direction. I understand all your challenges. And, you know, maybe there's too many units. Maybe it's less units, less parking to get that look, but
Are those louvers? The architect wouldn't just leave that open.
There's some design element that's to it. I wish it was detailed on here. Maybe I don't have the sheet. I know some of it might be storefront.
Yeah, there's no designation on the materials of what that is, so. I don't know, that would be a question.
It
Anyway,
might be worth considering the suggestion Nolan had to delay this another month. I know that that is cumbersome and costly on your end, and I'm empathetic to that, but could be advantageous to consider that, just so we don't have to, you know, making a motion that is less desirable on the whole this month as opposed to 30 days, or if, you know, the board would be amenable to a special meeting, you know, later this month. So we wouldn't have to wait a full 30 days, and that might be a possibility,
and
you know, to provide some more clarity.
I think that the other issue, I mean, the parking issue is the parking issue. You can't deal with that. You're required to provide 75 parking spaces by city code. And again, we don't mess with that. You could reduce units and reduce parking. Or is it worth going back to the city and trying to get a variance on the number of parking spaces? And we can't do that, but again, I think this is gonna be a really important project along Town Street. And I think to get it right is gonna be important to what they live there.
It is very important.
You want to do everything?
Comments back? Gentlemen?
I could start. So there's a couple things that I think are happening here, some of which Dave's helping us with, and some of which are design related and related to the COA and related to why we've taken the project this far. Our understanding was that last summer we received some sort of a conditional COA. Conditioned on no hardy board, adding a landscape plan to be reviewed by staff. So I guess where we are with the project is the equity is already in place, the debt's already raised. I know that's not something that matters to this board, but we do have a deadline of June 24th. So I guess we need to understand, do we have the ability to go back to that old design to match it somehow? Not that we want to go that route, but
Last summer, they could effectively just go with that and
Essentially, yes.
whatever's happened now.
Yeah, if you're proposing that, go back to the design that was approved last August, I believe. Yeah, since that was already approved.
The facade of it.
Conditions. So,
Yeah.
then yes, we can continue with that. But this proposal here, it's a little too different. There's no step back and there's no activation on the first floor like there was last summer. So that's the biggest change. So if we did go back to that previous design, that was already approved. Yes, we can move forward.
And Dave can speak to the items that he's here for. I mean, from our perspective, when we came conceptually last month, the feedback that we thought we received was that this building was much improved from what was last approved. And so we're definitely not hearing that today. And perhaps they weren't.
We said that it was much improved.
Yes.
I read the minutes.
I don't-
I was gonna say, I
don't remember us,
personally don't remember hearing that, and I don't want
I
to
don't-
speak for the board, but what
I
I heard.
don't remember us talking like that.
Was wanting the first floor to be more active.
That's what I remember.
Right.
I was
And we commented on that.
surprised that it wasn't like that, and that's where we started talking about the fitness, and there was a lot of questions about who you were gonna be bringing in, then we started talking about art, just because I think I had mentioned something that it looked very traditional, like, there was a lot. I don't remember us, again,
And maybe it was a certain part of the building that was viewed as looking better, but is there anything that we could do on the first floor that maybe would not be functional, but would look more activated?
I don't know what it is right now, because it doesn't, you don't even know if it's open or closed. But that would be interesting to find out. But you say you can't close it because you need to have ventilation, so that means there's probably some kind of, it's either open or there's a grill of some sort, but I mean, none of that changes what the project was before, which had the foyers of the town, of the units above, which again, I went back and looked at that image from last July, was it?
Yeah, it's the July.
And it's a different project. It just looks different. And I thought the other one was much more compatible with the East Franklinton guidelines for one, especially on major streets like town. If you look at the townhouse development across the street, it's got that kind of ground level stuff going on. So I mean, you could have your architects take a stab at it, but I don't know what it is if it's not an active use, if it's just a parking garage edge. I mean, we have had a number of parking garage edges at the ground floor come before us. And we've been pretty insistent. Some of them are not on major streets, so it's a different discussion, right? It's on an alley or something. And even that, we would wanted, some kind of a art or something on it to make it feel more active.
An example that could be worth considering looking at is 550 West Broad. They had a similar, I mean, it was on a different side. It wasn't fronting Broad Street, so that's different, but it might be worth looking at the design that they did as inspiration. I mean, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it might be worth considering requesting a special meeting so you don't have to bump up so close to that June 24th deadline. You can get some clarity on whether this is open or not. Take it back to your architect to see if there's something else they could do. So then in 15 days, I know that that's a tight turnaround. Potentially we could get another forum together. I know, like, I'm happy to see what I can do with my schedule to make sure that that can happen, but that might give you, more of a project that's more aligned with what I think you're wanting to do and what the board is wanting to see. That's my recommendation.
It's kind of you to offer the special meeting.
Oh, yeah, we've done it before.
Well, don't we have them on the calendar, like
We do.
Yeah, we have the business cheese on
business meetings, yes.
but we sorely use over.
Yeah.
Wednesday, June 11th. We've got. Calendar.
I know a lot of the discussion about reducing the activation along town had to do with obviously the parking and then the maneuverability within the parking garage itself. Would the board be open to considering bringing the lot on Walnut back into this project as parking?
I think the curb cut there on Walnut Street is not something that we have ever historically or probably ever moving forward we would be supportive of.
Well, right. I don't think it would be accessed from Walnut Street. Be accessed.
I know that, again, at least me personally, I think that my 2 cents is there's definitely a greater use on Walnut Street, especially with the Walnut Street vision.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. And that was our intention too.
I know that this is challenging. I've been in front of the board, many times, like on my personal, so I've been very empathetic and I don't want to keep throwing nails, but yeah, I mean, this project is important and I think you're headed in the right direction, I think.
my guess is it might require mechanical ventilation and get that front on there. And right now you're not mechanically ventilating, right?
I think that was our thought. I wish I had the architect here with me, but I thought the discussion was gonna be much different, but yes, I think it is mechanically.
Well, no, if it's open on the back and you're open, like two-thirds or.
Well, it's closed on most of the back,
That would be natural ventilation going through it.
but it's closed on the back.
Oh, is it? I thought it was open.
No, there's the only unsecured spots are this back row.
I keep looking at these elevations and it's like, so it's not a true elevation, it's
So there's a garage all the spots within the garage door are secured.
I know, but aren't the spaces that back to the alley?
Yeah, so
Right.
that's a wall right there in front of that car that's being shown.
Oh,
Oh,
see, I thought that was like fence, like the,
I thought it was open.
yeah.
No,
Is there any reason he couldn't be
it,
open?
it is mechanically ventilated because the HVAC unit for this retail space will be within the garage because there'll be fresh air flow into the garage.
For all this time, I thought it was, those spaces were all just open. There was
No, a
just
huge,
columns coming down and,
a huge part of the Benjamin project across the street was the value add of secured parking. So we're trying to follow that over here. In fact, we talked about trying to secure even these exterior spaces, but the garage doors wouldn't work.
so that means if it's mechanically ventilated, then you don't need to worry about ventilation on the front.
That's not our intention, is to have an open front. I mean, if anything, like we were thinking there might be like ivy growing up. I think like they have over River and Rich, or anything, or art displayed, or, I mean, whatever the board wants to see, we're happy to accommodate.
Well, I think the architects need to look a little bit harder at how to make something work on the front.
Something that a human can enter.
Yeah, something that feels like it's like a door you can walk up to and walk in, and like what you had before that's what it was. And there was actually little terraces, right? With each of you may see, I think had there was a terrace and then a door and you walked in.
Yeah, there was steps up, and I think there was a little
Yeah.
front porch area.
That felt reasonable to me. It's not like perfect, right, in terms of activation, but at least it felt like it was residential units coming down and meeting the street, and you could walk from the sidewalk into a unit. Yeah.
Do we want to discuss any other items?
Oh, no.
Gentlemen, how would you like to proceed on this? I think we can probably get a forum for a meeting on June 11th at noon. Is that how you'd like to proceed?
June
Well,
11th.
well, the chair moves to table the application until the next scheduled meeting of the board. I have a second.
Second,
Moved and seconded to table. Then
Mr. Burris,
approve.
Mr. White,
approve.
Spinner,
Approve.
and Ms. Schmidt. Thank you. Good.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All right. We have one new application. The application is COA 2500464. It's for lighting and landscaping at 550 West Broad Street. The applicant is Archall Architects, and the owner is Grateful Development. Staff report, please.
Thank you. 550 West Broad. This is for lighting and landscaping. Proposal requests review and action of lighting and landscaping for 550 West Broad Street. Proposal includes keeping the existing street trees fronting West Broad, the addition of 8 small beds filled with assorted annuals fronting West Broad Street, Boxley poly wrapping the northwest and southwest corner of the building, grass strips of various sizes along North Mill, Westgate, and North Gift Street facades, downlighting along the first floor garage facades, and flash down lighting along the brick portions of the south and west of the facades. The proposal is generally consistent with the recommendations of the East Franklinton plan recommends, that landscape materials and design should enhance structures, create and define public and private spaces, and provide shade, aesthetic appeal, and environmental benefits. However, staff notes that the applicant, separately from this application, are seeking variances on the original building design due to 550 West Broad being within the boundaries of the new Title 34 zoning code zoning. The potential variances are as follows: E2030 for building entries not to provide building entry along Give, Mill, or Gay streets. E2030 ground floor depth to not provide a ground floor active interior space with 12 feet along within 12 feet along Gift, Mill, and Gay streets, and to allow parking in a dumpster to be within the 12-foot active interior space. Last, E20-70 is on-site parking to reduce the parking setback along the side street from 12 feet to 3 for structured parking and 5 feet to 4 for surface, and to allow parking to be located between the principal and adjacent streets. The last two variances, G20-30 and G20-40, 30 is for landscaping, and it's to reduce the number of required shade trees for a 12-space surface parking lot to 0. And to not provide landscaping shrubs along the side street, to not provide a 4-foot landscape area, to increase the height of headlight screening, the headlight screening wall 48 inches, which is 4 feet to 11 feet, and to allow the dumpster to be located between the principal building and adjacent side streets. Seems like a lot. The building application was approved at the August 2024 EFR. The E20-30 and the E20-70 variances were essentially resolved at August 2024. The additional G20-30 and G20-40 variances, although not being voted on at this meeting, provide additional context on the screening requests of this application. To this point, staff requests additional screening along west elevation to help further mitigate potential light pollution in the adjacent parking area. Staff has the potential use of uplighting on the burnt portion of the first floor entrance. The East Franklinton plan states lights should have fully shielded recessed lamps directed downward to prevent glare and shine above the horizon. Additionally, the plan states that wall-mounted lights should be directed downward. To this point, staff requests the applicant replace all instances of the up-down lighting fixtures, the L1 style, with the proposed L2 style, which only lights down. Proposal aligns the East Franklinton plan by promoting mixed development that's consistent with the area's urban character. Project supports commercial activity on the ground floor and provides structured parking to minimize visual impact. Staff recommends approval with the conditions, like the replacement of up-down lighting, L1 style with proposed L2 style down lighting, and additional landscaping along North Gift Street facade to mitigate headlight screening from the adjacent parking structure. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions for staff?
So we're just voting on the lighting and landscaping.
Correct.
The rest was just for context.
Right, this is the
Just
difference of that
wondering.
new code versus. It's just the changeover, so it's the same project that you originally saw. It's just what this new code kind of now overlaid into it as well, because the new code's requiring, they're counting Gift and Mill and Gay all as major streets, which
I'm
would
gonna
have
stop you
12.
right there. Please state your names for the record.
Sure, Grant Dolvin with Grateful Development.
I'm Nora Beji with Archall Architects.
And for both of you, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
We do.
Okay, sorry for the
No,
interruption.
you're fine.
Proceed.
Yeah, the new code, it's requiring, or it's great code in like the downtown core. If you had true pedestrian walkable streets, but Gift, Mill and Gay in this situation kind of act more as like alleys and slower residential, but the new code is looking for 12-foot commercial spaces entirely wrapping that frontage. So that's what we have on Broad, which is what we got approved at that first project. And then if we were to follow what that new zone in code does, it would totally eliminate the parking, basically is what happens. You have like an interior of 20 feet basically to park something, and then you'd have vacant commercial space on the perimeter. But that's why that whole list sounds so complicated. And then the other thing was, when it looks at the trees, we are for trees. We want the trees around the perimeter in the right of way. Part of that code is viewing the parking that's inside that facade that you kind of called out on the last person here. That screening wall along the west side of it, that parking lot would more or less, for an analogy, is kind of like, they're viewing it as like an auto zone, as if you were to have like a landscaped tree bed with inside that open air parking type of deal. But it's a, screened parking lot. It's just how the code's looking at it.
Thank you.
And just to provide a little additional context for that wall, one of the variances, they're proposing to implement, I think it's next month, but soon, is to increase the height of the headlight screening wall, 4 feet to 11 feet. So if you can see this wall right here,
Right.
it should be this one right here. Our recommendation is to kind of anticipate those variances coming. What code says now is that this wall right here should be 4 feet.
But it's drawn much taller.
Yes, it's drawn much taller. I think the variance is requesting that it be raised up to 11, I believe, to match the height of this garage.
Which is that's what was previously approved.
Previously.
It's the same as what was approved before. Yeah.
It's just confusing.
Yeah.
Used by the 4 feet versus 11 feet.
Yeah.
The 4 feet is meant to hide the headlights of the car.
Correct.
What's the 11 feet for?
We're pushing it up for ourselves so that it's consistent with that first floor reading. So that's what what you originally shown is there. And that's what we got approved. And that's what we're asking for is in the variance, we have to now get a variance for it to be 11 feet because it's supposed to be a 12-foot commercial parking bay. But we want a secured parking garage.
Still confused.
Yeah.
So in my mind, what the code's asking for is that the bottom sill be 4 feet
Right.
to hide the headlights. You don't
That's
have
right.
that right on this one.
No, it's asking for a 4-foot tall wall.
Yeah.
That's it. That's just
And
it.
that's it.
That's
without
it.
anything
Nothing,
else.
just 4 feet.
That-
We're asking for an 11, so no one can just jump over it and.
But does the code still then interpret the sill should be 4 feet to block headlights?
You mean where we have the openings?
Yeah.
It could, I mean, it hasn't,
They're gonna go through the grill.
it hasn't changed. That's what was approved last time, but I understand your question.
Yeah, I'm
not-
trying to interpret the code.
I'm not against either way. Honestly, it's it's really a function of privacy on our end.
So why are they treating the west wall different than the other street?
The other side
Side.
is part of the building itself. It's actually part of the structure. That's an open air setback. So once you're above that wall, that's just really functioning as a retaining wall
Yeah.
for the parking. And then it's probably 30 foot until you'd see that lighter gray band in the back is showing the shed, like a building setback. So it's an L-shaped building.
There's no roof on top of it. It's
Right.
There's no roof. You had that as amenity floor at one point.
No.
In the first proposal?
No, we had the original concept. We had kind of a metal roof on it that then was not very well liked by some people because they didn't like that. I think the feedback was it's not industrial or there were no buildings like that in the area. But we thought we were being
Because
cute.
it was
Yeah,
the
was
same,
it exact? Yeah.
Which
I thought it was, yeah.
That to me is,
Yeah.
so it's just open air now.
Correct. hmm
So what override, so the 20-foot requirement for sort of space, does that override us?
No.
So whatever we approve today, you might still have to go back. and-
We're already going through, so we're going to the BZA next month for those specific, but it's based off of just what was already approved at the EFRB meeting in August of 2024. It's just the new code's interpretation and it's been a whole conversation with the city.
Does our action grandfather in that from the code? Our previous actions?
We've had to go back to
Why you're
the
BZA.
Franklin, to the other subcommittees. Yeah, no, it's been a lot of conversations, a lot of trying to figure out how everyone's interpret. It's been good. We're learning a lot.
And now Kim is too.
Yeah, see, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Essentially bringing everything into conformity with the new zoning.
Right.
So are there street trees required on these type gift of the mill?
They're not required. We would have to have a letter essentially reaching out to forestry
Mhm.
and
And
letting them determine if it's recommended or not.
right.
So I'm going back to now, the new code,
Mhm.
putting up higher level of importance on those streets would they then require?
We have new required lighting that is being enforced. They're looking for updated street lighting. We're required to update all the sidewalks. There are no sidewalks right now around that block. So we'll be improving all the sidewalks around, maintaining street trees, working in, conjunction with the city on the Broad Street frontage. But it's a whole new enhanced pedestrian experience considering what the block was. I think for the street trees itself, we're totally in support of street trees. The problem with the west side, which would be Gift, if anything, it's just that those super high
Oh, the
power lines. That, you can do something, but for how long it is the question. So I think if there is some sort of screening to, arborvitae or something along the fence line, but I think preventing, you got the power lines is the unfortunate part. Yeah.
You see the project.
No, we can't forget about this, yeah.
Any other questions? Not hearing anything, all right, would you like to make a motion?
No, I would like to offer now my deliberation.
Okay, deliberate forward.
So, I have some comments about the landscape. Two things. One is the Broad Street frontage. You've got planting around the lobby space.
Yep.
And you have these planters that are out in the sidewalk. Are those temporary? Are they like seasonal?
Yeah, they'd be like seasonal, so you can kind of like
They're
maneuver.
movable, they're not permanent, they're.
Right.
Okay, you can do whatever you want with those.
I mean, our goal is really that you want to activate that experience along Broad Street. You're going to have that updated bus line. Hopefully, you're really going to have a lot of people going on Broad Street, and hopefully that drives traffic to fill a vacant commercial space on the corner. But the trees along Broad Street are going to be the main thing, and then it's just really how do you provide kind of like a nice charm of character, but still allow for function of mixed use kind of space overflowing from whatever that intended user could be, whether it's a cafe or, it could just be
I
something.
think they're fun.
Okay.
They're gonna be part of some strategy for that.
Right.
Retail.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that I see Broad as it's an urban edge, right? And so putting the vegetation in front of the lobby, it should be almost like this urban edge. Sidewalks should come right up.
You want sidewalks straight to the base of
I
the
don't think
building?
that's the place to put the landscaping.
Okay,
Right, you need to put it is along the whole,
but the
the
sides.
two sides.
Yep,
And so you've got the taller evergreens on the columns, which perfect.
yep.
I don't think grass makes any sense.
I would totally.
And I think those should be, again, it should be some kind of evergreen
Mhm.
screen that softens those edges.
Some sort of arborvitae, something hardy that can take an
I mean,
urban.
using a holly, it could be low hollies.
Yep.
Versus upright hollies. I mean, I don't think we're supposed to be specifying what material, but just the type, and I think it's all the way around.
It's helpful maintenance wise. I mean, now we're not talking grass, we're talking,
I just can't imagine people out there mowing the grass. That's just really weird.
I was just there after unfortunately letting it get too long.
So again, street trees where you can put the
Yep.
power lines, and then I just think, and I treat Broad Street like more urban, active, outdoor patio with, something to like define the edge of the patio versus sidewalk. Yeah, I get all that. But just that whole edge all the way around just needs to not be grass, needs to be some kind of and it could be a mix of stuff, right? You don't want to just put all the same stuff, but
For sure.
a mixture of some evergreen things. And
You're not, you don't have to tell me, I'm in total support.
Oh, okay.
We'll make it happen.
Ken, are you suggesting moving, just so I know? Moving the
Yeah,
planters that are proposed completely off of Broad Street?
Yeah, getting rid of that planting in front of let it be like the urban edge come down. You go to the render.
Yeah, I'm supportive of that, I agree, however, just as like a user, I think having I do think it's advantageous to have some of those plantings if it's, and I agree, letting the concrete come straight up to be the more urban appeal, but creating an additional buffer, especially on Broad Street, as folks transition to wanting to be a safe place to
Right.
walk. I think if it's viable, and I think it's probably in the right of way, so maybe this is a moot point, but moving those planters to be like in between, similar to what River and Rich has done along Ridge Street, where they have the
Right.
the concrete
Yep.
planters there. I mean, it creates a buffer for pedestrians. I think it looks very nice, and it would provide, some additional screening if that is a cafe, but I think you're right, Kim, moving it away, but
Which ones are you talking?
She's talking about the ones on the north side right
Oh, yeah.
there.
Those things are fine. I have no problem with it.
and then I know even over there, I think instead of just removing it altogether, I think if you just moved it out.
I was trying to do the trade-off of take those and move them around the building. But those are fine there too, but I just think it's more of an urban, that's the corner right there, right?
That is a visual corner.
And
So
it's-
you'd rather see that corner open, have that commercial bay visible, and then kind of pull that screening more where that grass is shown and have that also be kind of another textural layer before you'd see that retaining wall parking feature that we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
I think that is a totally reasonable request. And
I'm not trying, I just want to make sure it's clear.
No, I'm glad you clarified that, so it was like, whoa.
I think that makes more sense too from the commercial bay usage as well. You're adding some visual attractiveness as you're coming down the street. It does add value for that user in the future, and then we still soften up the side of that building in between, the Sullivan House and all that stuff right there too.
Okay,
Are you okay? Anyone else?
we're going to vote about that? Yeah, let's make.
Yeah, you can make a motion on that.
I already made one today.
You still, so you're saying it's okay not to have that?
No, so what I
Get it.
thought I heard,
You get the point.
yes, so what I thought I heard you say, which is why I was clarifying, is I thought you were suggesting these be moved over.
Oh, no. I would say just leave those are fine.
Okay. What about these?
It was those to,
Move down.
Yeah, down. So I think the two dark gray bands up to the top that you had right there where Nolan's got scrolling, and then on the other side, parallel to that, up at the Mill Street side.
But these would remain here on Broad Street.
I think those we're now thinking could go and we'd pull it back. So now you're adding a sight line into that commercial bay, which is blocked off now currently by some low screening. It could stay. Those are low, but we could add varying heights along the other two dark bands that you're seeing at the top and bottom of that screen, pulled back off of Broad. So that's all concrete coming through.
okay. So.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah, so I would
Make
say,
a general motion if we were up there from staff to go on.
we may let that kill at the corner, although those two that would stay.
Those could stay. It's a break in between the two
Yeah.
breeds.
So those could stay.
And those maybe should bar the weeds here.
There's a window there, right?
Yes, there is.
So, but they could be taller or something, just, and get rid of those and expose that window wall. And it's something concrete, and then all of this.
Right.
And all of this. So-
Yeah. Eliminate the grass and put in actual hardier planting.
So get rid of it, it's all right now, it's all grass. So it's getting, except for these,
no, I think that makes sense. Okay, yeah, no, we're totally agreeing on that. That reminds me of the corner that's there at, what is that? Where 400 Bridges, where Gilbert Pizza is. I mean, something like that.
yeah, it seems to, that's gonna be a nice.
It'll be better once it's activated for sure. Yeah, you'll get some sightline in.
Anyway,
Thanks.
I got that motion. Yeah.
Okay, I just asked Nolan, generally speaking, we can still make a general motion for staff will take into account the discussion that we just had.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, given that, I will make the motion. So, Chair moves that the application be approved with the following staff approval conditions. One, the replacement of all up-down lighting, L1 style with proposed L2 style down lighting. And the other additional landscaping along the North Gift Street facade to mitigate headlight screening from adjacent parking structure and generally conform to the discussion that was, that ensued at today's hearing,
And along the other edges.
and along the other edges of the building as well.
Remove the grass, basically.
What's that?
We're just removing the grass,
Should put in,
putting plants in.
Plants in.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
and maybe a little more.
yeah.
Not part of the motion.
All of these comments were.
That's cool. Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And moved and seconded to approve conditions.
Mr. Fergus,
Approve.
Mr. Wade,
Approve.
Mr. Schmidt,
Approve.
and Ms. Lane.
Approve.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you guys.
Good luck
Thank you.
with the variances.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a possible special meeting on June 11th at noon. You will notify us accordingly. Otherwise, our next meeting, next regularly scheduled meeting is Wednesday, June 25th, 3 o'clock right here. Till then, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.